Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to my Austrian Grand Prix review. Now, it was a race full of drama and action, of course, right through the field, and many are describing it as one of the best races of the season so far. But before we delve into some of the bigger talking points, let's start, as we always do in these reviews, with a look at our race winner. It was Max Verstappen who took his first win of the season and the fourth of his career, with Christian Horner describing it as a mature drive from the Dutchman. And having watched it back this morning, to be honest, after he had taken advantage of some quick and clever strategy by Red Bull, and of course taken advantage of some of the luck along the way, he was fairly comfortable up front, even when Ferrari were coming back at him towards the end of the race. As I touched on there, it was clever strategy play in the end by both Ferrari and Red Bull, and that allowed the race to swing their way. That was all due to the virtual safety car being deployed, if you like, the reason for which I will cover a little bit later in the video. But that allowed Red Bull and Ferrari to pit for fresh tyres, double stack their drivers, and take control of the race strategy, putting themselves at the front of the field. But as for Verstappen, he has had a lot of stick this season, and in some cases I think it's fair to say rightly so, but he deserves a lot of credit, not just for the win, but also for how he has performed over the last 3 Grand Prix. It certainly looks as though his season has turned around. And as you'll see towards the end of the video, that win moves him up to 5th in the World Championship and to within 3 points of teammate Daniel Ricciardo. But let's have a look at the rest of the race result, and as I was saying there, it was the Ferraris behind Max Verstappen, Kimi Raikkonen finishing ahead of Sebastian Vettel, but just 3.1 seconds covered the top 3. But for the rest of the field, they were all at least a lap down. It was a great weekend for Haas. Going to talk about them a little bit later in the video. Romain Grosjean a brilliant 4th place and Kevin Magnussen in 5th. Force India recovered well to 6th place for Ocon and 7th for Perez. Fernando Alonso, again, I will be talking about him later in the video. Brilliant drive to recover to 8th. And it's double points for Sauber with Charles Leclerc 9th and Marcus Ericsson in 10th. Pierre Gasly took 11th place for Toro Rosso with Carlos Sainz in 12th. Not a good weekend for Renault. Looked good after qualifying, but they really struggled in the race. Lance Stroll did cross the line in 13th place, however got a penalty at the end of the race, 10 seconds added to his race time for ignoring blue flags, meaning that Sergei Sirotkin was promoted to 13th and Lance Stroll finished in 14th. And it's a fair old retirements list this time around. Stoffel Van Dorn, Lewis Hamilton, Brendan Hartley, Daniel Ricciardo, Valtteri Bottas and Nico Hülkenberg. And we're going to be starting with a couple of retirees, and it was a miserable day at the Red Bull Ring for Mercedes. As you saw there, both Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton retired with mechanical issues. It did look as though it was going to be a straightforward win for the Silver Arrows after they locked out the front row on Saturday and took early control of the race. However, on lap 14, Valtteri Bottas slowed and pulled over to retire due to a hydraulic leak, and just 7 laps from the end of the race, Lewis Hamilton stopped on track after a loss of fuel pressure. Bottas, who has suffered more than his fair share of bad luck this season, said that the luck he's having this year feels like a bit of a bad joke. And teammate Lewis Hamilton described the Austrian Grand Prix as the worst weekend I could remember for a long time. Following the retirements, there were a lot of questions asked about the reliability of the new specification Mercedes power unit, which of course was delayed due to concerns over quality issues earlier in the season and eventually did debut at Paul Ricard. But Toto Wolff believes that neither retirement had anything to do with the upgrade, but he did say that the race in Austria was a real wake-up call for the team. But it wasn't just reliability that was an issue for Mercedes. When Bottas retired, that triggered a virtual safety car which, as I was talking about a little bit earlier, resulted in both the Ferraris and Red Bulls taking advantage of the neutralised race and pitting for new tyres. However, despite having plenty of time to react and call Hamilton in, Mercedes chose not to. It did lead to several exchanges over team radio between the world champion and his team, but Mercedes strategist James Vowles took full responsibility for the blunder over team radio. And speaking after the race, team boss Toto Wolff described the day as tremendously painful and also went on to try and explain why the Silver Arrows left Hamilton out during the virtual safety car. Toto Wolff stated, "What I think happened is that we were running 1 and 2 and controlling the race, and then suddenly you see your second car, Valtteri, stopping with a hydraulic leak. The VSC came out, we had half a lap to react, and we didn't. Fact. This is where we lost the race." At that stage of the race with the VSC, pitting is probably the 80% thing you need to do. But with one car out there against 2 others, the thinking process was, what would happen if the others would split the cars? If we pit Lewis, would we come out behind Kimi if they leave Kimi out and behind Max? What would that mean for the race? The whole thinking loop, I wouldn't say distracted us, but we spent too much time on that. Also speaking about the team's strategy call, Lewis Hamilton stated that he retained full confidence in the team and that as a driver, you have to trust in what the pit wall are doing. The world champion said, ultimately, the guys on the pit wall, you have to put 100% confidence and faith in them. They have the full picture. All I can see is a guy in front of me and a guy behind me. I don't really know. Actually, at the time I was in the lead, I couldn't see where they were. In those circumstances, you have to fully rely on the guys on the pit wall. We've got to definitely work hard to understand where we've gone wrong on both ends. I know everyone in the team will be feeling pain, but we've got to take out the positives this weekend. Ultimately, we were the quickest. We should have won, so we've got to keep working hard. So, a very disappointing end to the weekend for Mercedes, and not for the first time this season, there are question marks over their strategy call. But just briefly, I do want to add to all of that at the time of recording this review, there has been no word as to whether or not either driver will have to take a penalty for Silverstone due to those mechanical failures. And I suspect, based on what we saw earlier in the year in Bahrain, we won't hear anything until probably Thursday at the earliest. Mercedes weren't the only team to see cars retiring due to mechanical problems though. Nico Hülkenberg's Renault engine gave way in spectacular old-school fashion, which obviously ended his race, and you could argue that he and Bottas are probably the unluckiest drivers on the grid so far in 2018. Daniel Ricciardo also had to retire after his Red Bull suffered an exhaust problem, which did actually lead to the team turning down Verstappen's engine to avoid him suffering the same fate. But a race that looked so positive for the Aussie, and of course on his birthday as well, all ended in frustration and disappointment. And another driver who can't seem to get any luck at the moment is Brendan Hartley. He also retired from the race following a gearbox in his Toro Rosso failing. I do just want to say something very quickly on Ferrari. Well, first of all, what a move by Sebastian Vettel on Lewis Hamilton. Absolutely awesome. A proper ballsy move. But also, a lot of people, including myself, fully expected the team to switch Raikkonen and Vettel around for the championship. But they didn't. I'm not going to lie, I was surprised, but I am pleased that they didn't do it. Yeah, okay, it would have helped Vettel to a larger championship lead over Hamilton, but with the Brit already out of the race, I kind of suspect that the team didn't really feel the need to issue those team orders. And Sebastian Vettel has come out this morning and backed the team's decision, and also stated that he was happy with his podium, but always wants more, as is the case with all drivers on the grid, I'm sure. There was once again a lot of talk about tyres during the race, but it was mostly due to some of the issues that drivers were having. Hotter than expected track temperatures did lead to a lot of blistering, particularly with the rear tyres which appeared to suffer the most. Daniel Ricciardo was the first to really show signs of struggling and had to make a second pit stop due to some very aggressive looking blisters on his rear tyres. But in truth, pretty much all drivers had to nurse the issues throughout the race. Despite all the blistering though, the soft tyre managed to complete a total of 56 laps, the super soft managed 54 laps, and the ultra soft tyre ran for a maximum of 28 laps. With the problems with the tyres the drivers were facing, it wasn't a comfortable one stop in the end, but the majority of the field did still manage to pull off the one-stopper. I've got to talk about Haas because they were exceptional all weekend and pulled off their best team result in their short Formula 1 history. They were also quite clearly best of the rest in Austria, and although not considerably quicker than Renault during the race, they had control of that battle with the French manufacturer. And of course, following Hülkenberg's retirement and Sainz's issues as well, they looked comfortable in the end. Kevin Magnussen was once again strong, finishing in 5th place, but teammate Romain Grosjean was impeccable all weekend, and so therefore I am going to make him my driver of the weekend. He was on it pretty much from the get-go and qualified a very strong 6th place. Of course, that was a promotion to 5th when Vettel was given his penalty, but more importantly than that, he kept it clean, he stayed out of trouble, and he took his Haas to a brilliant 4th place. Yes, okay, as I've already said about others, he got lucky due to retirements, but as I've said so many times, at the end of the day, you've got to put yourself in that position in the first place to be able to capitalise on that luck. The Frenchman, of course, therefore picking up his first points of the season, a whopping 12, and with teammate Kevin Magnussen right behind him, it capped off an impressive weekend from the team, seeing them pick up a total of 22 points. A bit of a stat for you as well, it was also the first time this season where Grosjean managed to beat Magnussen in every single session over the course of the weekend. Very impressive, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that will kickstart his season. Another team who impressed in the race were Force India. Ocon had a very good qualifying, put his car in 11th place, but Sergio Perez looked to be struggling for pace in quali, and it did appear as though he was going to be on the back foot for the weekend. However, as you saw in the race result a little bit earlier, the Mexican drove very well to take advantage of other drivers' issues and managed to recover to P7 just behind teammate Esteban Ocon. A very solid haul of points for the team, and on their 200th race weekend, they've got to be very happy with that. And of course, Sauber were equally as impressive as well. Marcus Ericsson started 18th, Charles Leclerc 17th, but both drivers managed to pick up points. Now then, on to my driver of the day, and as I said in yesterday's race debrief, I was torn as to who it was going to be. But having looked at it all again this morning, I just cannot look beyond Fernando Alonso. To start from the pit lane and make his way up to 8th place is just incredible, particularly in a car that has struggled of late, and by a driver who, after I think it was around 11 laps, was on team radio urging the team to try something on strategy, otherwise, and I quote, he won't be here for 71 laps. It once again underlined just what a phenomenal driver the Spaniard is, not that it was really ever in doubt, and just how much of a loss he would be to McLaren. It was his and his team's first point since Spain, and he once again managed to beat teammate Stoffel Van Dorn, who retired towards the end of the Grand Prix. Before I go then, let's have a look at the Drivers' Championship. Sebastian Vettel, he's moved to the top now, just 1 point ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who slips to second. As I've said many times already, this title fight could potentially be one of the best we've seen in years and looks set to go right down to the wire. Kimi Raikkonen into third place, actually not a million miles away from his teammate. Daniel Ricciardo is fourth, with Max Verstappen jumping to fifth. Valtteri Bottas, I still can't believe it, is sixth in the championship. If the luck had gone his way, how different could his season have been? Kevin Magnussen leaps up to 7th place with 37 points. Fernando Alonso is just a point further back on 36th, with Nico Hülkenberg just 2 further back on 34. And it's his Renault teammate Carlos Sainz who rounds out the top 10. In the Constructors' Championship, there has also been a change of lead. Ferrari now top on 247 points. Mercedes 10 further back on 237. Red Bull sit a comfortable third place, with Renault still in fourth on 62 points. Haas jump up to a very impressive 5th place, with McLaren 5 points back on them in 6th. Force India sits 7th, with Toro Rosso now falling away in 8th. Sauber a brilliant 16 points. They're in 9th. And Williams continue to prop up the table on 4 points. That is it then for the Austrian Grand Prix review. So what did you think of the race? Did you think it was one of the best ones of the season so far, as many do? And who was your driver of the day, or the weekend if you like? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Now, I will be at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix weekend from Wednesday until Monday. So the British Grand Prix preview will be up tomorrow. This week's news roundup will be out on Wednesday. And there will be a couple of pre-recorded videos going out whilst I'm away. But I will let you know which days they will be up on the channel before I leave on Wednesday morning. So don't forget to follow me on social media for updates and hopefully content whilst I'm away. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook and to Discord, of course, are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.